Hey everyone, as you can see I'm back home. I'm sorry that the video for episode 3 of 7 hasn't been up yet. This past week was my senior week and then graduation was this Saturday. So I was kind of busy getting my life together, packing, getting ready to move back home. And now I'm back home and I'm still kind of in the midst of reorganizing my room, making it semi more adult. Not by much, but just semi. And so I will have the video for episode 7 up by tomorrow evening, but I want to make sure I got this episode out today. I apologize for the delay, but it was my graduation week, so I think that you guys can be okay with that. So this is episode 8 of season 3, Second Sons. So first we start off with Arya waking up and she sees this giant rock and she has a killer croc moment. And she decides that she's going to try and bash in Sandor Clegane, aka The Hound's head in. However, the Hound, with his dog-like hearing, probably heard her make the motion. And he says that, like, okay, you want to hit me with that rock? Make sure you kill me. If you kill me, you're good to go. If you hit me with the rock and you miss, I'm going to break both your hands. And so Arya decides, better not. So she, decides not to, she got hit him in the head with the rock, and then we see them on their own little field trip together. Sandor's saying like, oh, you know, you're lucky it's me that found you, you should stop sulking, it could be somebody worse. And Arya's like, there's no one worse than you, which I think the entire audience is like, girl, you don't even know. And then he brings up the fact that like his brother was much worse, who is Gregor Clegane, the mountain who rides her, because he hasn't shown up at all this season, but that's okay, we don't really need him. And then they talk about Arya's one, and then they talk about, Sandor talks about how he helped protect Sansa back at King's Landing with the near rape scene, which was an addition to season 2 last season with the whole King's Landing riot, which kind of makes Arya realize, oh, you did help Sansa, whatever. And then she wonders like where they're going. And she at first thinks that the river they land on is Blackwater, and the Hound's like, are you serious? Dude, where do you think I'm taking you? And she thinks that they're going to go back to King's Landing, but the Hound is instead taking Arya to the twins because that's where the wedding between Edmure Tully and one of Walder Frey's daughters is going to be taking place. And so they're going to try to be there in time for the wedding, and the Hound is actually trying to help Arya and help himself by getting a reward from Robb and the others for delivering her safely to them. I thought that this scene, while they have like changed up some stuff with the Hound, I think they finally showed that like while he is very much gruff and an asshole because of the harsh life that he lived, he also isn't a totally horrible person. Like when he tries to give Arya the fruit and just how he's like taking care of her, he does have an affectionate side. He just doesn't know how to give his affections in a healthy way because he's never really had a healthy environment to kind of learn to do those things in. So I did like this scene. I do hope that we'll get more Hound Arya shenanigans as the season progresses. Then we get Dany, Jorah, and Ser Barristan doing some reconnaissance. How do you pronounce that word? Anyway, they go spying and they see that the Second Son warriors are starting to go in, and they're led by someone called Titan's Bastard, and they have about 2,000 cell swords. Yep, 2,000 cell swords that they can use, and Dany realizes that since she was most likely going to win because she has dragons, she has the most soldiers, that it would be better to try and get these cell swords to be on her side so that she can have even bigger numbers. And so she invites the 3 leaders of the Second Sons to come over and talk with them. Titan's Bastard is a complete misogynistic piece of shit who just talks about, you know, smelling Dany's vagina and how his dick is amazing and blah blah. And anyway, he basically, you know, tries to like put himself ahead of Dany and stuff. And meanwhile, Dany is giving Daario, who is this generic looking dude. Well, he's hot, but he's like generic hotness. The generic hot dude, Daario, giving him that eye. She's like, ooh, you got a braid. I like braids. And they're kind of having a little eye thing together. And the leader of the Second Sons is saying that he is going to like basically have Dany have Melisandre Melisandre, Missandei, just fuck everything, you know, and he's gonna win and they always win, blah, 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 blah. And then they said that they're gonna leave. Dany gives them 2 days to decide if they're gonna be on her side or be on the losing side, and then they leave. And when they leave, Dany says if they do end up fighting, that Sir Barristan is to kill Titan's Bastard first, which I think made me exceptionally happy about that, because Team Dany isn't here for that shit. Then we get the really long Team Dragonstone scene, which was both frustrating and aggravating, and we get Gendry and Melisandre talking, and then about basically how Melisandre had a hard life, how she lived on broth for stew for a lot of time when she was a slave, and how it could barely be called stew. And then Stannis comes in, he looks at Gendry, and he's like, yep, half Gendry, half some random tavern chick. And then they send Gendry up to get washed and cleaned, and then Stannis asks Melisandre, why are you being so kind to him? Why are you being so good to him? And using a sheep metaphor, she explains that if she does it this way, he will not resist when the time comes to do what needs to be done with Gendry. And it was a very well done scene. It just, more character assassination of Stannis, but I have just come to the fact that they don't really care about Stannis, so he's just kind of there because he has to be there. But whatever, I can deal with that. Then we get a scene when Davos trying to learn how to read. So adorable. So many little princess friends. I just love Davos. Just every time, it's just like he's just a welcome change from the usual kind of characters that we see. And I enjoy his character a lot more than I did before. I think that seeing him in the show has really made me care more about him in the books. So it's like I'm just a lot more invested in Davos's character. So he's learning how to read and practicing his books, and then Stannis comes down to see Davos, and he's acting like how he is. He's like, you're my best friend, I'm sorry I put you in here, but you know how the lady is, which isn't all accurate, but whatever. And so Stannis says that he's going to free Sir Davos if he promises never to lay a hand on Lady Melisandre again. Davos agrees to this, but he says that he will still, you know, criticize her if he feels it's necessary. Then Stannis talks about what they're planning to do with Gendry, and Davos gives him counsel about how it's the wrong thing to do, and Davos realizes that Stannis came down here to ask his opinion about it because he trusts that Davos will give him the right information, give him the right answer, and not mince words to try and make Stannis feel, you know, puffed up about being a king. Which is the really good thing about the relationship between Stannis and Davos. They respect each other's opinions, they respect each other intellectually, and Davos is where he is as Hand of the King because Stannis really and truly appreciates what Davos is for him as a subject, as a person, and as a friend. So while there are issues with that scene, because they kind of make Stannis very blasé about killing off Gendry in the sacrificial way, but I also recognize that they have changed the situation, so it does make sense that he would be less apprehensive about getting rid of Gendry as he would about Edric Storm, which was the book character, but I'm not going to get into that. But overall, this was a really good scene with them together, so I enjoyed it. Team Dragonstone, even though they're not the same at all, but you know, whatever. Then we go to a meeting of the Second Son. They're talking about how they really can't kill a bunch of Unsullied, and so the leader decides that we really have to just kill Daenerys. So he gives this one prostitute some coins, and whoever wins gets the Vala Margules coin will go kill Dany. And of course Daario, who was given Dany that eye, gets the coin, so we know that he's gonna go get with her. You know, you kind of, once you see that he's got the coin, you're like, well, he's gonna be fine, whatever. And then we get the wedding scene, and it's like when the wedding between Sansa and Tyrion first happened, I had a very kind of like I don't like this, I don't like how they're changing it, and like I understand that they have changed the context in which we're seeing the events play out with this wedding, but at the same time I can't help but feel that the way they did it did a disservice to Sansa's character, because really the focus of this wedding and the real torment of the wedding is based on Tyrion. We're supposed to feel the worst for Tyrion than we are for Sansa. And that's legitimately how I feel about scene. You can disagree, because I'm sure there are people who still feel bad for Sansa. I certainly do. But I feel like we have Tyrion coming and talking to Sansa about how he will be good to her, be kind to her. And it's all to reaffirm to us that Tyrion is one of the good guys. He is a nice person. And it's like, you know what? Tyrion is the better Lannister. But the issue is that he's a Lannister. And I feel like by cutting out certain scenes that showed that Sansa's problem wasn't with Tyrion's dwarfism, with his drinking, was the fact that she was being under the King's Landing, really kind of, you know, made it so that we kind of see Sansa as being, you know, inconsiderate, which is a stupid thing to say, because why should she be grateful to Lannisters? They ruined her life, so why does it matter? But anyway, he talks about how he'll be good to Sansa and how he knows how she's feeling, and Sansa's like, dude, you don't know what I'm feeling. But they kind of have their little repertoire back and forth. They get a smile out of each other, and then they go down to the ceremony. By the way, Sansa's dress is boss. Like, when you see it up close, it looks really good. It's just really pretty. I liked her dress. Not as much of a fan of the hair, but it's okay, because Cersei's hair cape was on point this episode. Thank the Lord that they fixed that wig, because her wig in season 1 was looking, and then second season it would go back and forth, but when she has her braids and all her stuff together, Cersei looked fierce. I loved it. And then she was having this kind of like back and forth with Marjorie, who's like, we're gonna be sisters season. So she's just like, girl, can you just get out my face? I don't like you. I don't need you in my way right now. I don't give a fuck about you. And I just think it was funny, because so far we've really seen Marjorie always one-upping Cersei constantly. Like, Cersei's really the one who's been, you know, kind of having to pull back because of Marjorie's influence. But we actually saw Marjorie kind of a little bit frazzled by Cersei's kind of threat about strangling her in her sleep. So I think that was really interesting to show that Cersei still has some control, even though it's been going back and forth about how much control she actually has. And then when Sansa comes down, Joffrey's gonna walk her, because as he is, you know, the king, and Sansa doesn't have a dad anymore, he's the one who can walk her down the aisle. So he walks her down the aisle. Sansa is just not happy about that. But then she has a nice moment where she makes eye contact with Marjorie, and you can tell she's kind of remembering what Marjorie said to her about being strong and whatever, and so she keeps going. And then when they get up to the where Tyrion is standing, Joffrey takes away the stool that Tyrion is going to use to get up and put the cape on, the cloak on Sansa's shoulders. And so instead, after a while, Sansa has to kneel in order for Tyrion to put the cloak on. Now, I understand the adaptation, why they had to make this change. I get it now more so. I mean, I got it before, but it's just kind of more like they just don't care about her inner turmoils or anything. But that's another topic for another day. But anyway, so they do that. They go through this ceremony, and wait, hold on. Give me some meal, and then okay. So we're done with that after that point. So then we go on to Gendry and Melisandre's awkward, sexy scene. It's like, first the blacksmith gets shirtless, to which we're all like, okay, step up in the right direction. Let's see where this is going. But then, of course, you know, within one swoop, Melisandre's just like naked, and then we see like her unbuttoning, like kind of like Gendry's thing. I used to see like a little bit, and I was like, oh, are they gonna do it, HBO? Are you gonna redeem yourself? And it was like, nah. They like have like a little bit of sex, and then like she starts tying, you know, Gendry up. He said his pants are still completely on. It's kind of like, of course. But then of course any sexiness gets removed when she gets off and starts putting leeches on his chest and then on his naughty bits, which I think, you know, my brother was sitting next to me and he was kind of like, ooh, and I was like, yeah, that was not fun for anyone. But it's funny that like we have another kind of like male rape assault scene right after Tyrion, and it was the same kind of way of them being seductive and then getting on top of them like hee, and then psh, sorry, you're about to get like really horribly treated. And then Sir Davos comes in and Stannis comes in, and Melisandre takes the leeches off of Gendry and puts them in a bowl and then gives them to Stannis, and he like throws them into the fire, saying like the usurper Robb Stark the usurper Balon Greyjoy and the usurper Joffrey Baratheon. And we've been constantly told that there's power in King's blood. So let's see exactly what kind of magic's going to go on with Melisandre's whole leeches and things. I think that was it was a well done scene in terms of suspense and wondering about Gendry, just very fan servicey as usual. But we saw that there's going to be nudity and sexual contact, so what else do we expect? Then we get Lady Olenna being sassy fabulous as usual. She's talking about like the complicated, because of the incest issue, about how like, you know, how weirdly related everyone's going to be, and that, you know, how they're still going to be brothers-in-laws and fathers-in-laws and nephews and aunts. It was just very kind of spat, and then Loras grows off angrily, and Lady Olenna's kind of like, ah, I'm so fabulous. And she is, like, as much as I've had some issues with how they've kind of put the Tyrells and how they've used them as characters, I do think that they have done a lot to really develop the Tyrell house in a way I don't think was really done as much in the books. I think there's still issues, especially with Loras' character, but overall I've really enjoyed them giving some depth to these characters that we didn't really get to know as well. Yeah, then Tyrion just starts getting wasted and kind of making a fool of himself, and then eventually Tywin comes in to talk to him. And let me just say, Tywin, I hate you. You know this. I hate you, Tywin. We'll never be friends ever. But his outfit, his jacket, fierce to death. I'm like, Tywin, where do you shop? Where do you get your clothes? Because Tywin always looks fresh to death. Never. He is the Kanye of this world, because he never goes out looking bad. No matter what he does, he's always got his stuff together. Get it. Go ahead, Tywin. I hate you, but you know how to dress. Good for you, boy. So they get drunk. There's a little scene with Loras and Cersei where Loras tries to talk to Cersei, but Cersei's just like not having that. And then Sansa goes off for a while. We see her talking to Varys, and I was like, I want to know what's going on over there. I want to know why she's talking to Varys. I really want to know this. But we don't see that scene. And then we see Joffrey coming up and basically like saying like, well, you know, yes, Mary Lannister, aren't you happy? And Sansa is quiet, and then like she's like, yeah. But then Joffrey's like, well, it doesn't really matter which Lannister puts it in your belly. And he says that he's gonna come and try to have sex with Sansa when Tyrion passes out. And by the look on his face, he's like, you're not happy about that. And then he's like, don't worry, I'll have 2 of the Kingsguard men hold you down. So he's basically saying like, I'm going to rape you as soon as this is over. And then he kind of instigates the bedding ceremony, which is where everyone witnesses the sexual act between the 2 of them. And Tyrion goes like, there will be no bedding ceremony, and Joffrey's like, no, whatever. And then like he stabs his knife down. He's like saying that if you do, you're gonna have to be fucking your own bride with a wooden cock. And Joffrey's like, what the fuck did you just say to me? What did you say to me? I'm the king, damn it. And then Tywin basically was like, my lord, your uncle is obviously very drunk. Please excuse him and his tomfoolery. I don't know what got into him. You know he's a fool. And then Tyrion is like, yeah, you know, I'm just upset because, like, Joffrey, your penis is so huge and mine is so tiny. And he just kind of plays it off in a very jesterly role. And then he and Sansa start leaving. Then he starts talking about how, talking to Sansa about how one time he threw up on a woman that he was having sex with. He's like, let me tell you about it to get you into the mood. And it's just like, it was funny. It was definitely funny. Like, as much as sometimes I have issues with how they portray Tyrion, Peter Dinklage can just work lines. He's just a really charismatic actor, and he really presented a character that I think just makes him like, there's a reason why everyone pretty much likes Tyrion, and I think that you see it even more when he plays that character. It's very well done. Let's see. And then then it's time for them to go into the room together, and Sansa drinks a little bit of wine, Tyrion drinks a little bit of wine, and Tyrion asks, how old are you? And she's like, 14. See, like, Tyrion looking at her, and you can see that he does want to have sex with Sansa. He does want to consummate it, and when she's about to take off her small clothes, he's like, wait, you don't have to do this. I will not bed you until you want me. And then she says, what if I never want you? And then he goes like, and so my watch begins, which is a quote from the Night's Watch oath. And then he kind of like plops down into his bed and into like the little couch bed on this side, and that's it for them. And after that we get another scene at Dany's camp where she and Miss Sandy are talking, and she's in the bath getting ready, and all of a sudden Mantis is an unsullied sneaks in and grabs Miss Sandy and holds a knife to her, and then it's revealed that it's Daario from before, and that instead of doing what his other commanders told him to do, he has killed them, and now he pledges his allegiance to Dany. And Dany says, why should I trust you? And yeah, basically Daario says, I love you, not I love you, but like I think you're beautiful, and so I want to follow you. And so we get our first kind of Dany nude scene in like 2 seasons, which is kind of like my brother is so stupid. He like says like, it's about time. It's kind of like, really, Brad, really? And then I kind of like roll my eyes at him. But then Dany comes up, she puts on her robes, and Daario pledges himself to Dany officially. And I love how like after Miss Sandy gets like a little bit kidnapped, as soon as she gets released, she kind of like just goes back to like into servant mode. Like there's no sense of like, oh my god, what just happened to me? Just kind of like, oh well, let me get Dany's robe. But we do learn that Miss Sandy knows 19 languages, so she is super impressive and a really good member of Dany's new brood. And I think that like we don't see any Dothraki anymore, really. It's disappointing. I miss a Dothraki. I miss them. I like the Dothraki. And then the last 2 scenes is that we see Shay coming in, and we see that Tyrion, and she realizes that she realizes that Tyrion and Sansa did not have sex because there is no blood on the bed, and she seems very relieved by this fact, which was very nice to see. Like I'm always concerned about how they're gonna make stuff work with Shay, but at least I hope they don't go through the whole jealous girlfriend route, because that would just make me very upset and extremely sad, because they could do so much more with her with how they've changed her up. But anyway, they have had sex, she's happy about it, and then we go off to Sam and Gilly, which the most important part about the scene is that Sam is now Sam the Slayer. He has killed a White Walker, like a true blue White Walker, who is trying to get Gilly and the baby with the piece of the spear that he had before, which he drops. And they haven't really explained exactly what it is properly in the show yet, so I'm sure they'll do that eventually. And then they get like the scene ends with them running and a bunch of crows just flying out after them. It's such a creepy scene because one, I'm afraid of birds, and two, it was just really well done. And I think we finally see Sam getting into his hero stage, and I think since they give him back his intelligence fully, we will really get a more dynamic Sam. So anyway, this was a good episode. I would give it like a 7-8 out of 10. It has a few hiccupy points, but I think overall it is what it has to do. I guess like I had a few issues with it that I still have, but I have to also recognize that like I can't hold it against the show, because it's like they are doing an adaptation, and while I might have issues with how they adapted, if they are at least consistent within their own universe, then that just has to work at a certain point. But anyway, yeah, it was a good episode. Next episode is going to be Boss, or at least it better be. I have my concerns, but whatever. I'm looking forward to it.